just logistically, you said they're going to embark on a virtual tour.
That's right.
Is there going to be an actual physical tour?
Knock on wood, COVID conditions permitting. That's correct.
On Ukraine.
Yes.
Yesterday, administration officials were expressing concern that about a Russian request to China for military assistance in their Ukraine invasion. I know that Jake Sullivan met with Yang Jiechi earlier in Rome, and the White House will have to say more. Will have more to say about this later. But I'm wondering if, in the meantime, you have gotten any indication that that this request that you say has been made has been met with any kind of a response, either positive or negative, by the Chinese.
Well, Matt, to your question, we haven't spoken to this and not going to comment specifically on these reports. What I can say broadly, however, and you alluded to this, is the fact that our National Security Advisor, who's accompanied by our Assistant Secretary for the region, Dan Crittenbrink, is in Rome today, where they met with Yang Jiechi and his delegation from the PRC. The National Security Advisor and our delegation raised directly and very clearly our concerns about the PRC's support to Russia in the wake of the invasion and the implications that any such support would have for the PRC's relationship not only with us, but for its relationships around the world. That includes our allies and partners in Europe and in the Indo-Pacific. Beyond that, I'm just not in a position to get into the details, but the purpose of this meeting, and you will hear more from the White House later today, I expect, was to convey very clearly our concerns and to discuss the implications.
Okay, but you said that you raised, I'll go back and look here, but you said that you raised your concerns about Chinese support So does that mean that you think that they already are supporting?
I am not confirming anything from here. What I will say is that we are watching very closely the extent to which the PRC, or any other country for that matter, provides any form of support, whether that's material support, whether that's economic support, whether that's financial support, to Russia. Any such support from anywhere in the world would be of great concern to us. It would be of course, the greatest concern if a country like the PRC were to be doing that. A country that, by the way, has tremendous leverage with Russia, has a relationship with Russia that is distinct from the relationship that we or just about any other country on the planet has with Russia. And with that in mind, could do more than probably many other countries to bring an end to this senseless violence, to this brutality, to Putin's premeditated war of choice. We have communicated very clearly to Beijing that we won't stand by if we will not allow any country to compensate Russia for its losses.
Let me put it a different way. Are you disappointed in how the Chinese have responded to your outreach?
I think, Matt, it is fair to say that it is incumbent upon every country around the world to speak out clearly, to allow there to be no ambiguity in terms of where they stand. You know, we've heard statements from the PRC that have somewhat of an ambivalent message, calling for a diplomatic solution. I read a statement the other day from a PRC official calling the situation complicated. There's nothing complicated about this. This is naked aggression. This is a war of choice. This is a country, one individual at the top of that country, violating in a brazen manner what have been the cardinal rules of the international order for the past 70 years. The basic tenet that big countries cannot bully small countries, that might no longer makes right, concepts that should have been banished to the last century, should not be around today. So we would like to see every country make very clear where it stands and to stand on the side of the rules-based order. the very rules-based order, Matt, that has benefited, of course, not only the United States and our allies and partners, but also countries like Russia and China. One final point on this, and we've made this point before. Countries like the PRC have, over the years, touted and brandished the concept of sovereignty, often pointing to sovereignty in any manner and any matter of foreign policy and diplomacy. If the concept of sovereignty means anything in practice to a country like the PRC, we would expect countries like that to stand up, to speak out, to make clear that a blatant violation of state sovereignty, the likes of which we have not heretofore seen in this century, is unacceptable. Tamara.
So just to follow up on that, Ned, we have reporting showing that U.S. sent diplomatic cable to allies in NATO and in Asia saying China had shown willingness to supply Russia with military and economic assistance. Can you say anything about the scope of this economic and military assistance?
I can't, and I would point you to that somewhat extended answer I just gave to Matt. The point is, it is true. We have coordinated very closely with our allies and partners. We have shared concerns not only about, of course, Russia's egregious behavior, but concerns beyond that. I'm just not in a position to speak to it in detail.
So what's next then? Because Jake Sullivan over the weekend said there would be consequences. Will you guys now convene and start working on a sanctions package for China as well?
Well, again, we're not going to preview where this might go. Obviously, don't want to entertain a hypothetical like that at this point. But I can point to what has happened today, and the National Security Advisor, our Assistant Secretary, our delegation met with Yang Jiechi and his delegation to precisely make clear our concerns and to be very candid in terms of the implications. Again, we are watching very closely to the extent to which the PRC or any country in the world provides support, material, economic, financial, rhetorical, otherwise, to this war of choice that President Putin is waging against the government of Ukraine, against the state of Ukraine, against the people of Ukraine. And we have been very clear, both privately with Beijing, publicly with Beijing, that there would be consequences for any such support.
Just one more thing. Just at the beginning of this, the Chinese were walking a more ambiguous line, perhaps. What is your assessment that why they changed their mind and are now partnering up with Russia?
I am not going to speak for the PRC. I will let them explain their actions. I will let them.
U.S. assessment of why Beijing has changed their mind. Surely you have an assessment.
I will let them explain their actions. I will let them explain their words. I think there is a lot for them to explain. Look, I think the broader point is that we have seen the relationship between the PRC and Russia grow closer. This is not a phenomenon that has taken place over recent days or even recent weeks. This is a relationship that has grown closer over the course of many years now. And I think we saw an encapsulation of that with the 5,000-word communique that the two countries put out now a number of weeks ago. Without going too deep into the analysis of the relationship of that two sovereign countries share, what I will say is that what does seem to unite them is a vision of the world that is in stark contrast to the vision that the United States and our allies and partners have not only built and promoted and defended, but the system that itself has advantaged countries like the PRC and Russia. This is a free and open rules-based order that has governed affairs between states for more than 70 years now. This is very clearly a case of two autocracies with the desire to see a world that is more closed, that is less open, that is less free, come together, in some ways joining forces. And we're watching very closely to determine the form that any such cooperation may take. Andrea.
Ned,